Hello and welcome to this part one of I don't know how many tutorials for completing the project which I call Solar or Solar System. And this is the version for Unity 6 point something and the render pipe engine URP. And of course, from your course shell, you will download two important things, which are the guide, which I have open in front of me for stage one, and you will also download the teacher's pack, which I have already downloaded. And the first thing it says in the instructions is to create a duplicate of the empty VR template, which usually is something we take care of on the first week. And for this project, it's based on the URP rendering engine, and then we changed the name. I changed the name of the folder to my last name Solar. So I made a copy on the disk, not inside Unity, but in the computer itself. I named it Benezer Solar for video fall 2025 because I have so many copies of them that I need to tell them apart. But for you, it's going to be enough just to have your last name and Solar. Then, even before I opened it with the hub, I took the teacher's pack, which I downloaded and pasted it, copied it, pasted it, of course, into the assets. And here it is. So then I could go to the hub and I open it, and here it is. And I can see in my assets that I have the Solar teacher's pack. And because this is started as a duplicate of our empty template, it has exactly what we had in our empty template, which is one sample scene with the OVR player controller and a plane with some kind of texture on it. So let's go back to the instructions. We just did number 2, which is Solar Teacher's Pack, unzip, copy contents. We did that. We're going to make sure that the MetaXR Core SDK is updated under Window Package Management, Package Manager in Project, and it's done this way. Window, Package Management, Package Manager. Out of all the categories, I'm going to select in project. I'm going to search. You can see I just did that for Meta. And it shows me that the MetaCore SDK version that I have, probably by the time you do this, it's going to be a higher number. The important thing is that it's got a little check mark, not an up arrow mark, which means it's updated. If it's not the latest one, there will be a button here for updating it. Please do. I'm emphasizing again that this project is based on a template for the rendering engine URP. This is the way we created it. And that will have to do mostly with lighting and with the way materials are created. In future projects, we will go to the built-in engine because it will work better for other projects. But for this project, URP works better. Back to the instructions. We're going to change the name of the project, something that is very easily forgotten, to change the name of the project because that changes the name of the identifier of the package to whatever your last name is, Solar. And then in player other settings identification, we're going to check and uncheck, and that automatically overrides the name of the APK that we're going to render from this. And we do it this way. We're going to go to Edit, Project Settings, Player. First, we're going to change, it's still called empty. And we're going to change it to, let's say, my last name. Solar, I'm going to add the word for video. In which, of course, you don't have to. I also like to add the fact that it's made for Unity 6 and maybe URP, just to remind me of, the things that I did to that make it unique. The important thing is that now that the product name, you can also change the company name, of course, but that's less important, is to go down in the player settings all the way down to right here, the identification, and you see how the identification is still the old one? So by unchecking and checking again, it creates like a nice cleaned version of what I wrote up here, erases all the different, all the unwanted characters like spaces and so on, and comes up with a unique identifier that I can keep for my APK. And of course, file, save, and save project. Next. We just did steps number 4 and 5. Make sure that the building platform is MetaQuest, which is really derived from, it's something new for 6, derived from Android. And we do that by going to File, Build Profiles, which used to be called Build Settings, File, Build Profiles. And my active building is MetaQuest. Honestly, we can still build on Android. I tried both and there's no difference. MetaQuest is Android. But if it's not, then you select Meta and there's going to be a button for, switching platforms. It takes a second. It switches platforms. For right now, there's nothing else to change here. Number 7, edit project settings MetaXR. If there are any items on the list, red or yellow, fix all for the red ones and apply all for the yellow ones. So it's the built-in debugging tool that's built into MetaXR. Again, edit project settings, and it brings up project settings, then MetaXR, and we're talking about this tool. Now, it's going to have as many tabs as the number of platforms you have installed. For me right now, it has only the built-in, Mac, PC, and so on, and the MetaQuest, which is Android. So especially on the MetaQuest Android, you see how it has both icon next to it. I will apply whatever fixes it's asking me, and in this case, it looks nice and empty. If there are persistent, let's call them stubborn items, try once, try twice. If they don't clear, just leave them alone. They might be cleared later on, especially if they're just warnings and not, red must fix things. Next. And now we're finally going to start the project itself. Stage 1. Create a duplicate of the sample scene, and we're going to call that scene Solar Main. In other words, we're not working on the sample scene, we're working on a duplicate of the sample scene. So, in my folder Scenes, here's the sample scene, edit, duplicate, and the name I'm going to give it is Solar Main. Very important, I do that all the time. If I start working right now, I'm still working on the sample scene. So double click on this new scene, and now I know I'm working on it, and not something else. It should have all the objects from the empty template: directional light, OVR player controller, plane. If there, let me fix that, is a global volume, delete it. The global volume is used for post effects like blur and bloom and things like that. For this project, we're not going to need it, so I'm going to delete it, make it simpler. Make sure to double click on Solar Main. I just said that to make sure it's the current open scene. Recommended. Press the white square in the orientation tool to flatten the perspective, spell perspective right, in the scene window. I find it helpful. This is not a must. What I'm talking about is the fact that it's going to be easier to work on our solar system if we go here and I click that little square in the middle, and that flattens. When I look from above, it's going to look totally flat. Right now there aren't too many objects to make a difference, but it's going to make it easier, just like an architect's floor plan, to lay, the planet and so on, as if it was like, a blueprint. We can always switch back and forth, but this is, I'm looking at the flattening of the perspective, just to show you what it looks like. If I looked at my plane right now, in perspective, it looks like this, and it looks like, the further things are away, the two lines are merging and so on. But flattened, it makes all the lines parallel. So it makes it easier to ignore distance and just concentrate on layout. Next, number 3, make sure you have OVR player controller. And we do, and we're going to give it position 2, Y2, and Z -20, which means we're going backwards. All else default, you should already have an OVR player controller from the empty. And we do. And here it is. And it actually already has Y2, but we're going to give it Z negative 20 because we're going to be looking at the center, but we don't want to be at the center. So we just moved it backwards. The next thing we're going to do, number 4, in the OVR Player Inspector, OVR Player Controller script, we're going to find acceleration and we're going to change it to 0.15. In other words, that's the speed that's going to move when we use the joystick. And we want to just basically fly faster. So it's not, frustrating. So in OVR Player Controller, there's a script and there's acceleration. The default is 0.1, and we're going to say, I want it to be about time and a half faster, 0.15. You should already have a plane. I want to set the X and the Z of the plane. The plane doesn't have a Y. It's not, doesn't have a height, but it does have a X and Z to 1,000. I'm not sure if we have it right now at 1,000. We might have it at 10, so I'm going to change it to 1,000. I want to have basically what feels like an almost endless. I need Y to be only 1. Almost an endless, plane. Now, if the material on it looks funny, don't worry about it. We're going to make it invisible anyway. So the material doesn't matter with any material. Disable the mesh renderer on the plane, exactly what we're about to do. So it's still there, but invisible. You should see only sky. And we're also going to turn off the directional light because we're going to create our own sun. Directional light pretends to be the sun. So, plane, mesh renderer, gone. I can see only sky. And directional light, also turn it off. Why not just delete it? Because I might want to, use it later for something else. Maybe for testing, whatever. We're going to change, speaking of sky, we're going to change the skybox to Milky Way skybox, which is, it's one of the things that came with the teacher's pack. And of course, changing skyboxes happens under Window, Rendering, Lighting, Environment. Window, Rendering, Lighting, Environment. Right now it's the default skybox, and we're going to change it to Milky Way. Nice, spacey skybox. Save. Save project. While we're there, changing the skybox on the same dialog, we're going to add some environmental light. So I'm going to push this aside and like this, so I can put my Unity and Word, the instructions, side by side. That way I can go Window, Rendering, Lighting, Environment, and I can copy. Let's make this even more. And I can copy what's in the screenshot. So Milky Way, yes, the color is the same. The source is skybox, and the intensity multiplier is 6, not 1. And everything else looks the same. Let's see, the for the environment reflection, intensity multiplier is 0 and 1. So instead of intensity multiplier 1, we're going to make it 0. What I want is that the reason I'm reducing it is because I want that extreme contrast that you see in like space photos between what's lit and what's not. What's not is like in almost total darkness. And we can like work around that. And I think those are all the settings. We don't have anything to demonstrate it with, but we will. 10. All the textures you need should already be in the project from the pack you copied, and it's in the subfolder called texture. But just in case, there's a link to where I downloaded them from, like the texture of, the sun and Mercury and Earth and so on. We're going to create a My Materials folder, unless we already have one. And let's Let's expand. I think I already have my materials folder. Good. Then we're going to create a sphere. Right click. Sphere. I think you create a 3D object. Sphere. I think you're guessing it's going to become the sun. And let's see what we're going to give it in order to become the sun. I want to expand it, but in a way that doesn't cover up other things. My materials create sphere. We're going to name it sun. In my materials, we're going to create a material for it, which we're going to call sun matte. And the one thing we're going to use as a texture in a regular rendering engine, it's called albedo. In URP, it's called base map. And we're going to change the material shader to universal render pipeline unlit and disable sphere collider. So let me go through all those steps and explain why, and then we're going to give it those settings. So first of all, material. Create material sun matte. For that material, base map. Out of all the things, here's the sun, 2K sun, and it has, this. But look at how it looks dull. The sun looks shining. It looks like it emits light. So we're going to change its pipeline from lit to unlit. And I know it's kind of confusing. You're saying, what do you mean unlit? We want it to look like it's emitting more light. Unlit means that it's at its maximum brightness regardless of the light shining on it. So instead of using universal render pipeline lit, we're going to change it to unlit, and you see what happens? This is a lot more of what we're looking for. Anything else about the material? Change material to shader to unlit, and we're going to disable the sphere collider of, we're going to call it the sun, of course. The reason I'm going to disable the sphere collider on the sun is so we can fly right through it. Then, of course, I'm going to give that sun matte to the sun and then change its size, because right now it's tiny. The sun needs to be, of course, the biggest thing in the solar system. We're going to change its position to 0, 1.5. I'm bringing all the planets up 1.5 meters above, the plane, so it looks like, they're not half sunken in. And its scale is going to be 10, 10, 10, or in other words, 10 times bigger. So as far as where it is in height, it's going to be 1.5. Let me see that the plane is where it needs to be. Yep. And as far as its scale, of course, if I lock, I can type 10 and it does it for all of them. That's what it needs to look at. So we're 20 meters behind. Look at a sun that's 10 meters by 10 meters by 10 meters. Of course, we're scaling everything down. And when it comes to time, everything is going to be accelerated and so on. It's just a model, of course. Save. Let's see if there's anything else. And of course, disable the sphere collider. So we just did step number 12. To finish off the sun, I'm going to add a point light to the sun as a child with these parameters. So, sun, right click, light. I want the sun basically to emit light. So I'm putting a light bulb, a big one, in the middle of the sun. And what settings are we going to give it? This light that shines from the middle of the sun. Its position is going to be 0, 0, 0. In other words, in the center of its parent. And so is, everything about it is reset. But it's going to be a point light. It's going to be in real time. Its color is going to be white, like the sunlight. But its intensity is going to be massive. It's going to be 70. I want it to illuminate, all around it. Its indirect multiplier is going to be 0, which gets rid of this warning too. And its range is going to be 200 meters, so it goes really, really far. Rendering default everything and no shadow. So I believe that's it. Also, there's one more script that they attached to the universal additional light data, which we're not going to need, so it's just an extra burden we don't need, I am disabling it. Save. So we got our sun. It's time to create our first planet. We're going to create a sphere, name it Mercury, and create a material for it, Mercury matte, with the base map for 2K Mercury. And in this case, it's going to be the regular unlit shader. So first of all, we're going to create a sphere. Then we're going to call it Mercury. Capital M to give it the respect it deserves. Then in my materials, right-click, create material, Mercury matte. The base map is going to be, I can arrange them like this, 2K Mercury. The pipeline is going to be the lit one. It says universal, it's not the unlit, it's the lit one. Let me fix that. And just like the sun, we're going to disable the sphere collider so we can fly right through it. Now, where is Mercury right now? It's in the middle of the sun. We got to move it so it's outside the sun so it can orbit around the sun. What we're going to give it is 6 1.5 and a scale of 0.5. So 6, 1.5, 0.5. So X, 6. Y, like all the other planet or planetary bodies, is going to be 1.5, and Z is 0. As you will see, we will position the planets, around the sun, but not like in a row. So each one of them obviously is going to be like a little removed either sideways or front back from the sun. And of course, uncheck the sphere collider. So when I double click on Mercury, you can see, let's of course give Mercury its material. Why isn't it showing the, oh, because I need to, let's see. I'm going to turn off cast shadows. I'm going to, of course, it's not going to accept shadows. That's actually in the material. The base map, it's going to not accept shadows. We're going to take care of the material later on. The idea is that I'm going to stop now. I'm going to stop this tutorial. The material, something's weird about it. I'm going to figure it out by the time that I start the next tutorial. But what I'm trying to say is that the next few steps are to do exactly the same thing over and over again to create a sphere, call it Venus, material for it, disable collider. To create a sphere, call it Earth, inside of it there's going to be a moon, and so on. I'm not going to waste your time by showing you how I do it. I will meet you in the next tutorial where we already have all those planetary bodies where you have followed those instructions. I think I will meet you at the point where we have a game object called Saturn container, or I will point it out because Saturn is a little different because it's got both a planet and the rings. But the next step will be after we have basically all the planetary bodies, and I will go over what needs to be in each and every one of them.